Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be looking at some of Playmates toys from 2009 for the Star Trek movie. I recently got this set used, hence why it's all unboxed already, off eBay for a good deal. It's missing a couple of pieces, but it still works. And I also recently got this off eBay for a good deal. Originally I bought this to go with the new Playmates Star Trek figures. After I got it though, I realised that these were 3.5 inch and the new line is 5.5 inch, so I don't see them scaling, but nonetheless it's kind of cool to have these and I will be happy to add them to my collection. So first up, let's take a look at this figure set. This comes with Kirk, McCoy, Uhura, and Spock. It comes in window style packaging with black for the rest. On the back it has some product shots of other toys which were released as part of the line. You had the light up Enterprise, which I do have, but sadly mine doesn't work anymore, so it's just used solely as a display piece. You had some 12-inch figures. You had the role play items with the tricorder, communicator and phaser. You also had a bridge play set, which we'll be discussing in a minute. You had the Galaxy figures, which are these 3.5-inch figures. And you had warp figures, which were 6-inch. So, with the 2009 and the Galaxy class figures, you were supposed to get included bits with the figures, which went as add-ons to the Enterprise bridge playset, and I believe maybe even the transporter itself. They were obviously different workstations, etc. Which meant that when you bought the bridge playset, which I don't have, you were essentially only getting part of the actual playset, and you had to go out and buy all the other figures to complete it. The bridge playset also just had a vinyl mat on it rather than anything solid, such as the Enterprise playset from the 90s. So that was very disappointing, and one of the reasons why I never collected this line when it launched. The other reasoning was that while the individual figures in the States came with the bridge accessories, in the UK and I assume the rest of Europe, they never actually came out like that. They were released solely as the individual figures, and there were rumours that the figures were going to be re-released in the fall of 2009 with the playset bits. However, due to the extremely poor sales of these figures, the re-release of the figures never happened, and in the UK we never actually got the rest of the Enterprise playset. Obviously that's very frustrating, disappointing, and to me it never made sense. Why would you release the figures, have parents, because these are children's toys, buy the figures for their kids, and then 6 months later expect the parents to repurchase the exact same figure just for an additional console? So it never really made sense. It didn't work. The line failed completely. So we only ever got a first wave of figures, which were these four. I think Nero came out. You could get cadet versions of Bones and Chekhov, and then you got a Sulu figure as well. These are the only ones I have. I am sort of toying with the idea of the others just to complete the line, but given their cadet uniforms rather than their actual Starfleet uniforms is rather disappointing. But nonetheless, these are the figures we have at the moment. So let's get this packaging opened up. Let's get these looked at, and then let's look at the transporter as well. So as you pull them out of the packaging, you can see they're in blister pack, and in the back you've got a Earthrise shot, which is a nice little backdrop. Would have maybe been a little nicer to have seen the Enterprise or something actual Star Trek themed, but that nonetheless, that is a pretty cool little backdrop. So here we have the figures themselves. Well, they are in the plastic packaging or blister packaging. Some of them have got plastic ties on them, or it looks like all of them have got plastic ties on them, holding them bits in places. So I'm going to get these out. We're going to look at what they have, and then we will go from there. And here we have the figures out of the packaging. So they are all essentially the same. They have all the same articulation except Uhura. I'll cover her differences in a moment. They have the same articulation. They have the same accessories. The accessories being a detachable belt. All it does is slide up over the legs and just slides up onto the waist. They each have a phaser, and they each have a display stand. So the display stand acts as a stand, but it also acts as a play badge for the kids. It just detaches the back or reattaches. To get the figures standing as a display item, they do need to remove, or you do need to remove the back, and then they just peg on nicely. Well, I say nicely, but they kind of look all off and over the place. Yeah, while I'm here and I've got them, I wanted to get one of the other new figures just to show the scale, which is just ridiculous. Hello down there. It is highly illogical for me to be placed with you as display items. Anyway, that was me being stupid, so we'll move Spock away. But yes, as you can see, they don't scale with the new figures. I don't like the stands. The stands are fiddly and hollow, but equally the figures have trouble sort of posing on their own. Overall, as a play item for kids, they do feel like cheap toys. They don't feel like something you would expect from well, I don't know. Some of Playmates can be very hit and miss as a toy company. Some of their stuff is great. Look at the new Mutant Mayhem turtle figures. Some of the stuff can be pretty poor. Their Voltron figures, I mean the actual action figures, not the Voltrons themselves, from the Netflix series. These figures have been really cheaply done. I assume that's because Playmates really didn't know if these figures were going to sell or not. But I do feel perhaps if a little more effort had been put into them, they would have sold better. So anyway, the figures have twistable heads. They're not on a ball joint, so it's just left and right movement. The arms are on a peg and ball joint, so you get a nice full range of movement. It's the same joint in the elbow, so you can get a full movement there. And the wrists rotate. Talking about the wrists, one accessory I forget to mention is Spock comes with an extra hand to replace his Vulcan salute hand. So that was a nice touch. That was nicely included, and you can see there that they are just literally a peg. That was nice of Playmates to do, and I'm glad they did that. That was the one thing, if you go back and see my review on the new Playmates toys, that was my one big criticism with the Spock figure, that he didn't have an extra interchangeable hand for the Falcon salute. But yes, the waist rotates. It's a tight joint at the waist. The legs are just a standard back and forth. The knees are on a hinge joint and move in the same as the arms, as do the feet, sort of, but they feel The feet feel completely misaligned and feel like if you bend them too much they're going to break. Oh, well, maybe I can't work out if I don't know if you can see it, but the feet sort of rock back and forth a bit, so I don't know if that was intentional, but they don't align properly, which causes the problem with the standing. But as you can see, the belt just slides up onto their waist. It doesn't clip anywhere, so it just keeps sliding up and down. It sort of holds the phaser rifle, but it does keep coming. It is easy to knock out. Likeness, you can sort of see Simon Pegg there. It's a nice enough likeness for the 3-inch. You can see Zachary Quinto there. It's a nice enough likeness. Chris Pine doesn't look anything like Chris Pine. It's just a flat, generic face, which is rather disappointing for your lead character. And for Uhura, she looks absolutely nothing like her at all. Not to sound racist in any way whatsoever, but she almost looks like a Asian knockoff version rather than the African. Yes, that was awful of me. I don't mean that to sound any, but you can see what I'm saying, that the skin's too light, the eyes are oddly flat on the face, the arms don't have an elbow movement. That always really annoys me with female characters, is that they have, 9 times out of 10 they lack the elbow joints. I understand it's and wrists as well, nothing at the wrists. I understand that's probably a combination of being the least likely to sell characters for male toys and the fact that the arms are quite narrow. But yes, that always does annoy me. There is sort of a waist, but not greatly. I can't see here if that is just me potentially going to snap it, or if there actually is. I think there is a slight twist there, but not anything significant. Knees are the same as the males, as are the ankles. So yeah, there we have the figures. In terms of likeness, very hit and miss. In terms of quality, extremely disappointing. And even as a children's toy, I do feel that they are very disappointing. They'll look okay on display, tucked at the back. But yes, compared to what Playmates have done recently with the newer 5-inch figures, are so much better. Especially Burnham, which I don't have here at the moment, but compared to what they did with Uhura, is incredibly disappointing. So that is that with the figures. Overall, a disappointing batch, but you can see why the toy line failed. Then we have the transporter playset. So this did come with a vinyl mat as well. I'm just trying to pull that out, which is just a vinyl mat to put the transporter on, and that's kind of it. Yeah, these vinyl mats, I don't know what Playmates were thinking with those. It was a very odd choice, very disappointing. It wasn't even needed for this one. So here you have the console. The console disconnects. It does plug in, and you can control the electronics with this. I don't know. This button up here for me doesn't work. As I said, I got this second hand. So I don't know if that was supposed to work or not, but this button does control it. That just connects into the back here. You have the transport play unit itself, which we'll look at in a minute. Then you have the transporter pad, which is just a solid plastic with some nice blue see-through plastic and some nice paint. There is some nice paint detail on this. So that, as a unit itself, it's a nice unit. It's just the vinyl playmat as a whole that seems odd. The back piece does disconnect. I think the back piece disconnects, and if you bought this new, it came with a couple of other transporter pads, so you could have it either with the background or you could just have it as a transporter pad, which I think is a nice touch. The play feature on this is fun. So with the play feature, you have this transporter unit. It has an on, off and demo mode. And you can see, like the 92 version or whatever, this operates on a mirror basis in the same way. However, this has the additional feature that it's removable. And the idea was, now this is missing the piece to complete this play feature, but the idea was that you would put this down and it would pick the figure up on a stand, lift the figure up, and then you could transport the figure to another location and beam them down. But nonetheless, that bit's missing, so I can't complete that action, but you can still get the experience of the figures working. So we are going to bring in one of our figures. Let's bring in Spock. So they stand on the transporter pad, and then you have your just getting imposed. You have your transporter chief, in this case Scotty, who sat on the transporter chair. Now, interesting, the chair's on a spring and twists and turns, and it feels like it should have another mechanism to it. Again, I don't know if that is something that's broken on mine or if it's just as it is, but it does feel like there was another play feature intended there, so I'm not sure. And now that I'm talking about that, I am wondering if there was one of the other figures came with another transporter unit, a bit like you build the playset for the bridge, and if that did something, I don't know. But that might be the case. So anyway, you stand your figure on the transporter pad. Just trying to get him stood. There we go. So we've got him stood up. You then bring down. You bring down the unit and press the button, and the light lights it up, and you can see him in the transporter unit. And then either pressing this button here or pressing the button on the control. So Scotty presses the light, one to beam down, and then you can see that he's transported away by magic. And sorry, I can't get a good enough picture here, but you can see that you can no longer see the figure in question, and then you can beam them back by pressing the button, and then they are transported up, and they slowly, magically reappear. So overall, that's a fun play feature, and you know, Playmates, for the most part, I feel hit the mark on this. It was it's a fun play set. I can see a lot of kids having fun. The fact that this had, you know, a transport unit, so you could physically move your figures from one location to the next. Is a fun touch. It's nice to see. If you don't want it, there's a nice display unit for your figures. So overall, this is a fun playset. It's just the 3-inch figures themselves which are a disappointing addition, and of course the aforementioned bridge, which was completely incomplete. As I said, I don't know if there was supposed to be, or if there was another additional command console that you could get with one of the figures. It does kind of look like that maybe there was, but nonetheless this doesn't feel incomplete for not having that. This does feel like a complete play set that a lot of kids who, you know, like their Star Trek could have had fun playing with. So there we go. We have our 2009 Star Trek. There we have our Star Trek Transporter playset and 4-figure set. As I said, the Transporter is a really fun play set. I don't have the original 90s version, but it works on a very similar basis in that the mirrors light up, except with this one you do have the additional feature of actually being able to physically move and transport your figures from one place to another, which I think was a great addition. Just overall, I'm really disappointed with the 3-inch figures. They could have been done so much better. Even at the 3-inch scale, I feel, you know, likenesses could have been better. The plastics could have been tighter. You know, little things like that. Playmates' business sense of not including the necessary add-ons for the bridge, which is a whole other topic in itself, is, you know, odd. But there we go. We have our Star Trek playset. I hope you enjoyed this video. I did enjoy taking a look at these figures, and I'll be back soon.